You know, when I was growing up in the 1960s, my favorite musical band was the Beatles. And my first exposure to Eastern mystical religion really came from listening to George Harrison. And I recall that during that time, lots of spiritual practices from India were incorporated into America. And one of those most important practices is known as yoga. Well, what is yoga? And can you separate the physical exercise from the spiritual underpinnings? To answer that important question, we have Balajid Nangram, who has joined us. Balajid has a background in science, in philosophy, in Christian theology. Balajid, talk to us a little bit about what is yoga. I mean, again, Americans see it as merely exercise, I think, but I'm aware that it has deep spiritual roots. So tell us a little bit about it.
Very interesting that you mention the Beatles. You know, you can't help but think that you look back to the time when the Beatles had this deep experience that they were seeking after when they came to India. In fact, they sat at the feet of a guru called as Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Right.
Yeah, and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was one who has also helped in some sense to popularize yoga. Now, when you really look at yoga, what is yoga? Now, yoga basically is taken from the word yujir and yuja. The very word yoga actually means union with God. Now, if you understand pantheism or Hinduism, basically the classical or the philosophical one basically goes by this, that everything that we see is nothing but ultimate reality, that is Brahman. And who is Brahman? Brahman is again everything that you see. So it comes from that very understanding of all is God and God is all. Now, having said that, now the whole idea in which yoga comes is in the context where they see that the problem with man is that he seems to have forgotten that he is divine. Because man, as understood from this particular worldview, is that man is essentially divine. He is essentially Brahman.
Yes.
But now he seems to have forgotten this very reality that he is divine. And so as a result of that, to get out of that slumber or to get out of that ignorance, all he has to do is now do yoga. Yoga is basically the path of realizing that you are nothing but Brahman, or you are divine. In pantheistic worldview, the problem with man is not sin. It is his forgetfulness.
Okay.
It is actually his ignorance that he is divine. So I think when you really look at this aspect of its understanding of spirituality, and then yoga being proposed as the path of salvation, so to say, or to attain moksha.
Right.
So you need to understand that when you really look at this philosophy, you cannot separate just simply the exercise, which I think today, or as you have rightly pointed out, the Beatles' interest in yoga. In fact, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi has promoted just the third aspect of that philosophy, that is called as the asana, that is basically the exercise. And in fact, they would probably teach you that it's just the physical exercise, nothing else. But then to take yoga as just physical exercise and remove or separate it from its philosophical or its metaphysical underpinnings is to do injustice to that very worldview itself.
Now let me ask you this question, because a lot of Christians practice yoga. Now, here is their justification. They say, look, we have different intentions and different beliefs. We like the exercise. We like the benefits that they feel more at peace. They enjoy the stretching, but they don't accept the idea of pantheism or Hindu religious ideas. Do you still think that is not the path to go down because yoga is so deeply rooted in this Hindu philosophy of pantheism? Or what kind of advice, warning would you propose to maybe even Christians who are attracted to yoga?
It's interesting that you bring this whole dimension of even many Christians now are of the opinion that yoga, there is nothing wrong with just simply adhering to the physical exercises, rather than, that they can even do yoga without probably considering the spiritual underpinnings or the metaphysical issues that it brings along. I think. But what is interesting is that many scholars, even Hindu scholars and many yoga gurus that I have read, if you look at Bharat Thakur, for instance, an example of that, he in his writings have very categorically said that, he finds issues with Christians especially looking at yoga as merely physical exercise, because he would say that, yoga has two aspects. It is a package. It is both the internal and the external. So you can't just simply take the external and leave the internal. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the whole package of yoga, it is meant to be a combination of both the internal as well as the external. So you can't have the external without the internal. So I think people are mistakenly, they are wrong in probably understanding that it is just merely a physical exercise and ignore the spiritual aspect of it.
So the critical component here is that this practice is not neutral. It has deep roots in a metaphysical Hindu view, and since you have both internal and external, I guess in some ways you wouldn't really be doing yoga if you didn't consider the spiritual side.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
I agree with you.
Thank you very much.